Hey guys, what's going on? It's Karl here, back with another episode, and it's been 72 hours with the brand new iPhone 8. Here's my review and thoughts whether or not you should grab this device, which is strangely named. I think this should still be called the iPhone 7s, iPhone 6SS. You kind of know what I'm saying. Apple skipped a generation in naming mechanisms, but we've got the 8. Not to be confused with the 10, which is coming out later November. So first and foremost, the pricing and the specs. The 8 starts at $699, the 8 Plus starts at $799. Two options in terms of space, 64 or 256 gigs. It's nice to finally see the baseline starting at 64 gigs, and it also now comes in 3 colorways. They've kind of scratched the rose gold. We've got space gray, the new gold, and of course, silver. I'm definitely partial to this one. Reminds me of a chalk finish. I think I've mentioned that before. High-end sports car. The silver takes it this year around for my go-to pick. So other than that, the design of the new iPhone 8 hasn't changed from last year, the year before that. We still have the same, in my opinion, dated looking iPhone. And I kind of just scratch my head wondering what or who is this phone for? And I get it, it still has a 4.7 or a 5.5 inch display. It still has Touch ID, that little button on the front, where the new iPhone X, the iPhone 10, will just be purely edge to edge and we won't have any physical home buttons on the front. This guy in 2017 just seems dated, and when you compare it to the GS8, the new Note 8, so theoretically, the displays are slightly better. It's the new Retina HD display, but they do have the same resolution, and unfortunately, they're not the OLED panels, which we're gonna see later on the X. The 10, that's something that I'm really stoked about and can't wait to see that. The biggest difference that you'll probably see is the back is now made of glass, which the biggest difference here, it now has wireless charging. Finally, I know the tech is so old, but now that Apple has it, everyone's throwing up their hands saying, oh my God, this is the greatest. Android has had this forever. But it's finally nice to see Apple is finally following in those footsteps. Better late than never, and the charging pad is coming out later on this year. Also, just stay tuned for that to be super expensive. Classic Apple moves. The biggest changes on the 8 are the internals, and it has the new A11 Bionic chip, and I thought the 7 Plus from last year was super quick. This thing just takes it to a whole different level. So that means every single thing that you throw out the 8, whether that's 3D intensive games, photo, video editing, you name it, the 8 can crush. Couple that with iOS 11, this is the fastest iPhone. I know they say that every year, but it is lightning quick, and I am so impressed with the chipset. In my opinion, probably the crown jewel of the 8. Another big upgrade is the cameras on the back. We've got a new 12 megapixel sensor. On the 8, you've just got the one. On the 8 Plus, you have the 2 sensors, and now both of those actually have OIS, optical image stabilization, so your shot should be better in low light, which they have been, and of course in video. It now records 4K at 60 FPS. Even my high-end $5,000 camera can't do that, so that's impressive for that to be packed in to a tiny smartphone. It's nice. You can also record 240 FPS at 1080p, and to get that kind of slow-mo once again, it's very impressive. I was testing this thing out the entire weekend. All shots, all video were super crispy, and the 8 actually scored the highest benchmarks for smartphone cameras. It's good. It's a really good camera. It still has the same goodies of portrait mode and also the beta of portrait lighting, and you can actually change that in post after you've taken a photo. So things like stage lighting, backlighting, natural lighting. And I'm not trying to be biased, I thought the Note 8 had an awesome camera, but on the iPhone 8, this is, I think, the best camera that I've used on a smartphone, and I always love going back to iPhone photography. Apple, you know how to make your cameras. Battery life, I've been crushing the 8 Plus, and even though I'm throwing everything at it and I'm always on my phone, it has easily lasted the entire day, probably even a day and a half. It's got great efficiency, and coupled with iOS 11, I'm loving it. So in the end, who is the iPhone 8 really for? Well, first off, if you cannot wait that extra month until the iPhone 10, the iPhone X comes out, you have to have a phone, you need an Apple device, I get it. I would have loved to have seen Apple pricing the 8 and the 8 Plus probably $100 less, and I would have seen a true value for it. When I was at the Apple store, I mentioned this in my last video, the line was non-existent. Everyone is waiting for the 10, and having that at $150 more, there just doesn't seem to be any wiggle room for the 8 to be successful, but I'm not in charge of Apple marketing, what would I know? Stick around, hold out until I get my hands on the 10. I'll compare both, I'll let you guys know my thoughts, but if you're in need of an immediate phone right now, I guess you have that option to grab the 8. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see an 8 or maybe even a 10 as a potential giveaway item as we are approaching 350K, just be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below on why you would grab the 8, why you wouldn't, something interesting about Team iPhone, and I will catch the rest of you in one of my next episodes or in one of my vlogs. Peace!